We say when we're in Israel that X does not always mark the spot, and this is one of those places where it does mark the spot. And we know it does because right behind the camera and right in front of me is the southern wall of the Temple Mount. And then right below that are the stairs of the Eiffel. And we're going to be walking up these stairs in a moment, but I wanted you to picture this in your mind. I think it's sometimes difficult as we're reading the scriptures to really visualize this, especially when we may not know all the history or we may not have seen the place where all of the history took place. But remember with me that on the pilgrim feasts, there could have been as many as 100,000 people up on the Temple Mount. And it wasn't, you know, normally in a church setting, you have a sanctuary, you have multiple entries, and people are coming in from all sorts of different ways. That's not the way that it worked to get up on the Temple Mount. There was a very complicated, meticulous process that people had to walk through. And part of that process was for the respect and reverence they had for the most holy place, which was the pinnacle of not only the Temple Mount, but also all of Jerusalem and for the whole country. And so each person that came on those pilgrim feasts, whether it was Passover, Pentecost, or Tabernacles, had to go through a process of ritual cleansing. And they would go through the ritual mikvah bath. They would immerse themselves into under living water. They would put on a brand new garment, and then they would come to these steps here, and they would begin to ascend up to the Temple Mount. And you know, in the mind of a Jewish person, this was the most significant thing that they did. And 3 times a year, if you weren't living in Jerusalem, but you were traveling here as a pilgrim, 3 times a year, this was the moment that you were waiting for. And as they would walk up these steps, they would take their time. In fact, the steps themselves they're spaced unevenly. And the intention behind that was so it would slow down those who were ascending to the Temple Mount to worship. In other words, they would have the time to really think through the process of coming into the presence of God, which is what the temple represented. The most holy place represented the presence of God. And so they would be taking their time ascending up these stairs, thinking in their mind about the worship of God, the offering that they were going to make, thinking about the prayers that they were bearing on their hearts for their family members and their friends, thinking about the privilege that God had given them to be part of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, worshipers of the true living God. And they would be processing this, thinking about this, you know, meditating on this the whole time as they ascended these steps. And as they got to the top with the multitude of worshipers, they would enter in through the Hulda gates to the right and to the left. And then maybe they would turn around and consider the vast valley here, looking down from this perspective, looking down to the city of David and seeing the Kidron Valley on the right hand, the Gehenna Valley on the Kidron on the left hand, the Gehenna on the right hand, and thinking back of the great glorious history of the nation that spanned for over 1,600 years in this particular place, a city that was the apple of God's eye, a place of worship, a place where God was honored and revered and respected.